You might notice that my handle is Sienna Stims, which has changed after well over 2 years of being at another autistic Aussie. There are a few reasons for this change, one of which I will go through in detail in June, so wait out for that video, but I wanted to go over what stimming actually is. So absolutely everyone in the world stims to some extent, but it is far more noticeable in autistic people and people with other neurodevelopmental disorders. Stimming refers to self-stimulating behaviours. There are many reasons that people stim, like in response to a strong emotion, whether that's negative or positive. For example, happy flapping or wringing one's hands in anxiety. Stimming can also be in response to the environment someone finds themselves in, which might be because the environment is too overwhelming and too overstimulating, or it could be because the environment is too understimulating and the person is needing to seek sensory input. Either way, stimming helps regulate both emotions and the ability that one has to cope with the environment that they are in. Now, if I ask you to picture someone stimming right this very second, you would probably imagine either hand flapping or someone rocking back and forth. Both of these are examples of vestibular stimming, which relate to a person's sense of body in space while moving. These are the first behaviours you probably thought of or are seen as a bit of a stereotype, because they are very much outwardly obvious and they have been seen in autistic children for a very, very long time. But while these behaviours might be the first ones you thought of, they are absolutely not the only ways of stimming. There are realistically countless forms of stimming, far more than could ever be summarised in a video. Many of them you would probably never even consider a stim because so many people around you do it every single day, like chewing your nails or twirling your pen or tapping your foot up and down or twirling your hair. But these are stims, and whether in an autistic or a non-autistic person, they would probably be related to an emotion or a scenario. For example, twirling your pen around your finger would probably be related to either thinking in school or thinking at work. These types of stims are all masked, meaning they are ones that socially pretty much everyone is going to accept. Though you may be tapped on the shoulder if you're tapping your foot too loudly in a work meeting or in an exam and you're disturbing other people, it's not going to stigmatise you in the same way that flapping your hands is going to. Therefore, a lot of people who can mask will use these stims as an alternative or a replacement to other stims. Doing them ultimately does still release pent-up energy or emotion, although they may or may not be as effective as other stims depending on the person. And then there's all the types of stimming that people don't really realise are actually stims. The ones that may or may not get you a funny look. They are split into different categories. Auditory stimming, which involves a person's sense of hearing. Olfactory stimming, which involves a person's sense of smell. Oral stimming, which involves a person's sense of taste. Proprioceptive stimming, which sometimes gets confused with vestibular stimming, but involves a person's sense of body in relation to space, often while not in motion. Tactile stimming, which involves touch. Vestibular stimming, which involves a person's body in relation to space while moving or balancing. Visual stimming, which involves one's eyesight. And vocal stimming, which involves the use of one's own vocal cords to make sound. Examples of each type of stimming are auditory stimming, could be listening to a song or a sound on repeat. Olfactory stimming often involves smelling things. Oral stimming most commonly involves taste, whether that's through chewing or licking something. Proprioceptive stimming often involves pressure on the body, so whether that's in a sensory hammock or pushing against something that either can't be moved or moves very little. Basically things that involve deep pressure or physical contact on the body. Tactile stimming can be things like stroking or feeling an object, seeking out specific textures. Also drumming your fingers or snapping them, rubbing your hands together, twirling your hair are also tactile stims. Vestibular stimming relates to bodily movement, especially when the body doesn't come into contact with anything. For example, flapping your hands, spinning in circles, rocking back and forth, pacing, swinging, bouncing or jumping. Visual stimming might involve looking at a light source, flicking your fingers in front of your eyes to distort your vision, lining up or grouping toys or objects or spinning objects. And vocal stimming relates to things like humming, repeating the same words, phrases, or parts of a song over and over and over. Now, some stims do fit into multiple categories. For example, vocal stims are often also auditory stims because you can hear yourself making them. Clapping is also an auditory stim while being tactile.
Stuff can be two things.
Until quite recently, there has been a lot of pressure to either mask or repress stims in order to be more socially acceptable. But as the neurodiversity rights movement has progressed, phrases like stim freely or just keep stimming have emerged, rightfully pushing for social acceptance for something that is just part of people's everyday lives. But, and there is a but, it isn't just as simple as stim freely for everybody. In places where the education is poor about autism or other neurodevelopmental disorders, and in particular for neurodivergent people of colour, stimming freely can be dangerous. To an untrained eye, stimming can be taken as a sudden movement or sign of aggression and can be met with police brutality. A 2018 study on autism and the criminal justice system found that undergraduates had a lacking understanding of autism, or some had a moderate at best. Other studies have also reviewed the literature and training given to police officers and have observed that they are inadequate, and that low numbers of officers complete these courses. And this is no different for any other neurodevelopmental disorder or mental health condition. As well as this, stimming or atypical behaviours make someone more likely to be a target or a victim of assault, for the same reason that the general public does not have adequate education. The other reason that stimming isn't always safe is because while all the stims that I've gone over in this video so far are relatively harmless, it's really important to acknowledge that not all stims are harmless. Some stims hurt the individual stimming and others hurt those around them. Two examples of this include head banging or skin picking. Since these stims have the potential to cause damage, they are the ones that it is most important to try to redirect to a harmless stim because we don't want people hurting themselves while they are stimming. All in all though, stimming is something that people should be able to do in public without being discriminated against. There should be more education so it is more accepted, and through people stimming freely in safe environments, it should also normalise stimming. Because honestly, we deserve to be in an environment where it is safe to stim, where you're not going to be discriminated against, and where you're not going to be bullied or mocked or... No, we're not going there. That is for June. So keep for June. Yeah. Because stimming is nothing to be ashamed of. It helps a lot of people regulate their emotions and their ability to cope with their environment. Forcing someone to stop stimming is actually really harmful to their health, and stimming is a part of people's identities. In most cases, stimming doesn't harm anyone else, so why are we so disapproving of it? What are your experiences with stimming? Do you engage with any of the stims that I mentioned in this video but you didn't realise they were stims? Or what about stims that I didn't mention? Until next time!